And if the crowds are anything to go by from the other night at the opening mass, the organizers estimate there were somewhere between 200 and possibly 300, 350,000 young people all down throughout the park, way down to the roundabout. It was just a sea of flags, people from nations all over the world. So with the Holy Father being here, we expect just as big a crowd, if not an even bigger crowd, and we will have that live and in full here on EWTN. But at the moment, we continue covering the Pope's journey as he visits various locations. This morning, he went to the Catholic University of Portugal, where he heard the testimony of 4 young students. He then responded. It was a beautiful moment of encounter with those young people. At the moment, he is on his way to the small town just on the outskirts of Lisbon, around 40 minutes from where we are now. Beautiful town by the sea called Cascais. And there he'll be meeting the group Scholas Occurrentes. This is an international organization that Pope Francis himself founded back in Buenos Aires in Argentina. I'm joined, as always, by our great trustee team here, Father Mark, Mary Christina, and Matthew Bunsen. Matthew, this group that Pope Francis found,
yes.
Tell me a bit about its origins, why it was founded, and the purpose of it.
Well, Pope Francis, when he was Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio, the Archbishop of Buenos Aires, was very concerned about the forgotten, the poor, the most vulnerable, something, of course, that he's continued as Pope. And one major concern that he had was that the educational opportunities for the disadvantaged, those who are most vulnerable, simply weren't there. So he started an unusual organization of sort of neighborhood schools. And it was marked by innovation of using sports and arts and academics to help young people. But then he broadened that out as Pope to an international organization with pretty formal church recognition now all around the world. And now it brings kids from all different backgrounds, different countries, even different religions together to connect with each other, to build that horizon of fraternity that he talked about a couple of days ago, but also to give them those educational opportunities, but in creative ways. And now we're seeing elements and new headquarters for the Scholas Occurrentes appearing literally all over the world.
Wow. So he will be meeting the Portuguese chapter of that.
That's correct.
And it's interesting, on the website, they talked about, like, Argentina had this terrible economic collapse, like 2000, 2001.
Yes.
Like half the country was reduced below the poverty line.
That's right.
So this was like a response to all that devastation.
And Father, you know, in a country that, of course, such beauty and culture and heritage, but already such suffering. I mean, Buenos Aires is a beautiful city, but on the outskirts, slums with hundreds of thousands of people. I think the largest slum has 200,000 people living in one slum outside Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
So this is the backdrop with which Pope Francis, Jorge Bergoglio, grew up.
Well, that's right. And he was very familiar, too, with the favelas of Brazil and elsewhere. And he also, very famously as Archbishop, went into those slums. It was said that if you couldn't find him at the Chancery office, he was probably there.
And also a great lover of the tango music, and his two passions in Buenos Aires, if I'm right, football and tango.
And mate, is that what they say?
Yes, he loves mate, yes.
I heard a story when he was like at the seminary. He would cross this muddy field to go into the favela or something and just visit the people. Or either that, he was in the seminary making big pots of spaghetti himself, cooked for the seminarians.
Yeah, it was said also that when he was one of the rectors of the Jesuits, that he would be done with the laundry for about 150 members of this community before they had even waked up, before they were even awake.
And I remember seeing a great documentary made by the Knights of Columbus where they were saying, you know, the Pope, when he was Archbishop there, he was famous for traveling on the metro and the subway with the people, and that he would answer his own phone. And when he became cardinal, people thought this was unheard of. And when he would answer, they'd say, this cannot be the cardinal answering his own phone. But that humility was always there.
Well, and now people can't believe when...
He still does answer his phone. You often see that the general audience may be delayed a few minutes, and he's on the phone. The Pope Mobile will stop, and he's answering the phone.
So these encounters are very consistent with his priorities as Pope. And now he's got this visit with young people.
Now I see on our monitor here in the studio we are getting a live feed, live pictures from Cascais, people gathering around the gates here of this centre with their phones. So we presume now the Pope has arrived we are trying to see here, we see the shot like you can see from the air. So yes, the Pope has arrived. He will be going inside, and we will have an English translation of his words. This one, we will see, we're a bit unsure what will happen, exactly who he will speak to, who he will meet. So we'll be watching this unfold with you live at home as well.
The expectation is he's going to be meeting with some of the students, younger kids. So he just went from university to younger setting. So that's why I think his remarks are going to be much more extemporaneous.
And you want to make some comments about maybe just anecdotally what we've kind of encountered?
So far today?
Yeah.
I loved when we were talking about it, and yes, you're right, we're conscious that people are tuning in all over the world all the time, so you may have missed it earlier today. It was wonderful at the Catholic University of Portugal. They held the event outdoors in front of the university in the beautiful sunlight, and there was a crowd of 2,000 people there watching, 2,000, a lot of them young people, and then you had a further 6,500 people watching in an area nearby on large screens. Of course, they can only accommodate so many people in each location. But when these 4 people gave their testimony, and then, as I said, the last person who was from Iran then went to Iraq, fleeing the persecution in Iran and the hardships there, only for the war to break out in Ukraine, and then going here to Lisbon. Right. But what she said at the end, she said, "You've no idea what this means to me." And I just thought that summed up everything for those young people.
I was just talking to 2 pilgrims from Switzerland. One was from Switzerland, one was Portuguese. But, you know, they described it. One of them said, I said, "What's special about World Youth Day?" And they said, "It's a living faith." That I think she meant that it's kind of cold and you need to break in with this, I guess.
Yes, Father, I'm just being told now that we are going to leave Eduardo Park, where we are sitting and talking to you now, and let's cross live to Cascais and listen to the Pope's remarks.
The walls, for those of you joining us by radio, the walls are colorfully decorated. Paintings. Who is explaining this young person is describing the meanings of the paintings that I described earlier. It sounded like she was explaining that it shows the beginning of the way. Another young person is continuing the explanation.
Bom dia, Santo Padre. Bem-vindo mais uma vez à nossa casa de escolas.
We now have the president who is welcoming the Holy Father. No, okay. Now they are they're going to be presenting a mural. It's 3 kilometers long, and perhaps this is part of what we're seeing here.
Foram mais de 5.000 pessoas e mais de 100 instituições que se juntaram para partilhar o próprio caos com nós outros e encontrar juntos sentido.
All of this is very spontaneous, so we don't have translations of what these young people are saying.
Que além de tornar-se educadores, terminaram este percurso fazendo deste espaço uma grande obra de arte. Mas são eles, muito melhor que eu, que podem contar as suas vivências e também fazerem algumas perguntas que surgiram das suas experiências. Força, Lashi!
Bom dia. Escolas. escolas. Quando me foi apresentado, não tive dúvidas em aceitar e abraçar, porque é um espaço onde todos partilham as suas emoções e sentimentos. É um espaço onde cada um contribui com aquilo que tem de valores éticos e morais para o bem-estar da comunidade, independentemente da sua religião ou origem. Sou guineense, da Guiné-Bissau, e sou muçulmano, mas sinto-me neste espaço, e como sendo muçulmano, sinto a obrigação
He's
de
explaining that
me juntar e fazer
this
parte
mission
deste
goes
movimento.
beyond
Porque o que o Islão também apela
the people
é a boa
who
convivência entre
participate,
as crenças,
especially
entre as
those,
diferentes crenças.
because
Apela e zela pelo bem-estar da comunidade. Apela
he's saying that it's a community that welcomes all sorts of people.
aquilo que devemos fazer, pelo cuidado que devemos ter com o próximo. E por essa razão, gostaria de
It's been a lively experience, really remarkable, because he's had the opportunity to be with people of different religions and cultures, people with disabilities,
de tanta diversidade
and there's a lot of
ter uma obra de arte.
diversity.
Obrigado.
I think that it's a work of art that a lot of different cultures and different faiths have been participating.
Scholas posibilita esto, que cada uno se sienta interpretado.
Everyone needs to
Por el gran respeto,
feel that they have something to give,
pero es un respeto no
and
estático,
we need to have a lot of respect,
que pone en marcha.
a respect that's dynamic, not static, that makes us move to do things in order to express by doing.
El corral es una capilla sistina pintada por
It's
ustedes.
like so what you've created is like the Sistine Chapel, except it's been
Scholas te
painted by
pone en
you.
marcha. Scholas te hace respetar al
And
otro
Scholas makes
y escuchar al otro que tiene algo que decirte,
expects
y
you
el
to
otro
respect
escucharte al otro
others
que
because others
tiene
also
algo
have
que
something to
decir.
say to you.
Scholas
And
te muestra
even if
el
you
camino
have
hacia
something to say, and
adelante.
Scholas
Y si por ahí te
can
quedas,
help
te
you
levanta
see
y
the
te
way
sigue
that's
adelante.
ahead of you, so that you can get up and walk and journey toward others. It's a way to meet others by walking.
De la religión que sea,
From the country that you have and from the religion that you belong to, it's to walk forward, walking together.
ustedes han hecho para llegar acá.
Just like these 3.5 kilometers of mural that you have painted.
Eu queria seguir pouco na direção da diversidade para entrar no tema que foi a base dos nossos 2 meses de trabalho, que é o caos. Nós, enquanto grupo, e eu também individualmente, tivemos a oportunidade de visitar várias comunidades
They've
diferentes,
been able
várias
to
pessoas
visit
diferentes,
various
que são de religiões diferentes, são de
communities,
culturas diferentes.
different
Isso nos deu uma
cultures,
oportunidade grandiosa de aprofundar cada vez mais,
and
não só
through this
dentro
he's been able to
da própria pessoa, mas também
deepen
da
things
comunidade.
within himself, but also about the community,
O
in order to
sentimento
discover
verdadeiro que elas tinham, as verdadeiras dores que elas sentiam, e com isso dar a oportunidade a elas de representarem tudo isso com uma pincelada, com uma linha no mural, dar a oportunidade de se expressarem. E isso, querendo ou não, afeta a nós, toca o nosso coração. Para pensar,
all of this can touch our
será que
hearts.
temos esse sentimento? Será que essas dores fazem parte do nosso convívio? Então, queria perguntar, o que seria da nossa existência sem o caos original? Obrigado.
I haven't picked up everything, but our Holy Father will now also be responding to this young man.
Vos decís caos, está bien.
You're talking about chaos, and you're talking about crisis.
Crisis, ¿sabes de dónde viene la palabra?
Do you know where the word crisis comes from?
Se cosechaba el trigo, se pasaba por una zaranda. Se cribaba,
When you when you sift flour, it's the sifter, and the crisis within a person is like this. So when things happen in life, problems that we have,
y vos tenés que elegir.
you have to
Una vida
choose.
sin crisis es una vida aséptica.
A life without crisis
¿Vos te gusta tomar agua?
is a life that doesn't have
Si yo te doy
color.
agua
Do you,
destilada, pues una
you like to drink water? If I give you distilled water, you wouldn't like it.
vida sin crisis. Como el agua
Distilled water
destilada.
is water without crisis. So a life without crisis is like distilled water. It doesn't have taste or anything. It doesn't, it's useless.
Pero y cerrar la puerta.
It's only, it's only worth keeping.
Las crisis
That's
hay
it.
que asumirlas.
The crisis, we need to assume crises, and we need to resolve them.
Tampoco es bueno porque es un suicidio continuo.
And
Es como una
to create a crisis isn't good. That would be like just saying, like a dog trying to catch its tail.
raramente solo. Y eso también es importante en el grupo de escuela. Caminar juntos para
It's also good to confront crises together so that
crecer.
we're not alone in them, and we move forward and we can grow this way.
Aunque sea para comer una
Good, good. Keep moving ahead.
Nestes 2 últimos meses trabalhámos muito para conseguir fazer o mural que viu lá fora, mas este mural realmente representa o caos. O caos que muitas vezes, quando o vivemos e quando o vivemos de perto, não o compreendemos e é uma grande confusão, parecem só linhas aleatórias. Mas a verdade é que chega um ponto em que nós nos distanciamos. E nessa distância começamos a...
Once again, we're hearing the theme chaos, and that chaos sometimes hits us in the face. We don't know how to respond to it.
Muitas vezes apenas vemos ou apenas sentimos, mas sim conseguimos expressá-lo. E para mim, por exemplo, foi uma experiência muito grande, porque também já vivi momentos de muito caos na minha vida, acho que todos nós vivemos.
It sounds like she's saying that she has experienced a lot of chaos in her life,
Verdadeiramente aberta para ouvir, para partilhar, para acolher.
and she's been trying to reflect on how to
Foi privilégio para nós, acho que
respond to
para nós
chaos.
facilitámos isso ter acontecido. E tudo isto porque buscamos este sentido, e todos nós buscamos este sentido profundo de perceber.
And she's been trying to understand how to respond to chaotic situations.
Queríamos perguntar-lhe o que tipo há. Enquanto passou neste mural, o que
It seems like the mural itself is an expression of how these young people have been reflecting on the theme of chaos.
ao início ou ao fim, não sabemos. E antes de responder, queríamos também
It looks like part of it is the creation event where, as we know, chaos is one of the words used in the translation of the account. And so in everyone's name, they're offering the gift of a paintbrush to the Holy Father, which they would have used to create this mural.
Había alguien que decía que
There's someone who said that the journey of man and women, of human life,
del caos
is to create out of chaos the cosmos,
desordenado, lo caótico.
to move from what is disordered and chaos to create a cosmos out of it. Something that has meaning, but it's open, it's inviting,
Yo no quiero
and
ponerme
inclusive.
acá, ¿no? Pero
And I don't want to become a catechist here, but if we look at the structure of the narration of creation, it's mythical. And out of myths, it's a way of knowing. It's a way of creating meaning. And so whoever created that creation myth, in parentheses, that person wrote it many, many years after the experience of creation itself. And it was actually written many, many years after the Exodus experience. And so they were reflecting on how that chaos was transformed, and they're using a very poetic language to understand how God one day creates the light and then continues to create other things, transforming the chaos into the cosmos. And in our lives, the same thing happens. There are moments of crisis, and they're chaotic. And someone might even know if they're on their feet, and sometimes they're dark moments. And this is the personal work that a person goes through, but also we're helped by people who accompany us in order to create this cosmos. There's a lot of, and even in the Sistine Chapel, we see how the cosmos is created out of the chaos, but we also see it among you. Never forget this. Out of a chaos, a cosmos can come out, and this is everyone's journey. A life that remains at a chaotic level is a life that never conquers, but one who's never experienced crisis or chaos is a distilled life. Everything's perfect. It's a distilled life. It doesn't give life. And it's a way of dying, but there's life where there's chaos. A life that is transformed into a cosmos.
Muchas gracias, Papa Francisco, por tus palabras. Gracias. É uma alegria para nós concluir assim este caminho, mas apesar desta experiência terminar,
it's a joy for us to conclude this journey with the hope that what we have painted will not end, but will open another path. In fact, each part of the mural has been an experience. It's a synthesis of the artistic world and the virtual world. And so they're going to be unveiling the last part of the mural.
Papa Francisco, el video, el pincel virtual que hablaba Eugenia, es un arma para la paz.
And what he's holding up is a virtual paintbrush. He said it seems like a pistol, but because you have to press a button, it kind of looks like a gun. But when you press it, it gives you access to the virtual world.
Un artefacto en Mozambique, en Tofo, para ver tu pincelada que vas a hacer ahora y seguirla en el mundo virtual. Porque los jóvenes.
And so, all over the world, other people will be able to see the Pope's paint strokes all over the world. And so in this way we can see how the virtual world can unite. And so this is a digital paintbrush that the Holy Father, it seems, will be using in order to paint something on the mural, in order to give him the possibility of painting, and this And now he's trying out this. Oh, we see him. It actually paints on the wall. The Pope is enjoying himself as he has used the paintbrush, virtual paintbrush with green paint, and he's adding his own touch to the mural on the wall. And those who are here now are expressing their applause. Here, too, is the President of the Republic, it seems, who's been accompanying the Holy Father throughout the trip. He was also present yesterday, or this morning, rather, with the university students at the University of Portugal. The gift now is being presented of an icon. It's the story of the Good Samaritan. None of us are exempt from being a Good Samaritan, the Holy Father is saying. Each one of us should be a Good Samaritan. And the Good Samaritan, we can see on the ground. But we also see those who passed by first, the Levite and the priest, and they went by in a hurry. And they didn't pay any attention to the man on the ground. They couldn't touch him because there was blood. And according to the law of that time, anyone who touched blood was impure and had to purify himself. And so that impeded anyone with blood. It was a person couldn't touch them. So this is the gift that we see our Holy Father will be leaving with the headquarters. How many times we prioritize legal purity to getting near to other people. The Good Samaritan at that time would have been an idea that was really strange. And yet, this other person who is coming, he may have been a merchant. He sees the man and he feels compassion. I'm going to ask you a question. What makes you feel compassion? Or do you have a really dried up, shriveled heart that you can't feel compassion? And so what happened? The man brings the wounded man to an inn. And he found a room for the man, and he says, "Look, I'll be back after a few days, and I'll leave this money with you, and if there's something else that I need to pay later." This is someone who paid well. So there's the Good Samaritan who took care of the person, and then we also see the other two with their backs are kind of turned away so that they don't get impure. And Jesus he's pointing to the person who had compassion. This person is near to the reign of kingdom because he had compassion. Where am I here in this picture? Am I helping the person? Or am I dirtying my hands? At times in life, we need to get our hands dirty in order not to get our hearts dirty. Our Holy Father explaining to the young people here the icon that he's leaving as his gift to the headquarters of Scholas Occurrentes here in Cascais in Portugal.
Desearme bendición a mí después.
And he's giving them a blessing, but he's saying, that I want you to promise that you will also bless me.
Abençoe vos, Deus Todo-Poderoso, Pai, Filho, Espírito Santo. Recen por mí.
Pray for me. And if you can't pray, or if you don't feel that way to pray for me, send me good thoughts. Holy Father, surrounded here with this mural that we've been hearing about from these young people who themselves have painted it.
A nos acompanhar para a bendição da videira, ritual da escola e símbolo do encontro entre mundos diferentes.
And so there was a final greeting. And they're going to be greeting him outside. It seems like this is something that they do here at this place. So they'll be greeting the Holy Father forward, as is their custom. Our Holy Father taking place in this unscripted meeting with young people who partake of the movement that he himself had a hand in establishing in Buenos Aires. Our Holy Father also this morning, when he celebrated Mass in private, met with the family of a woman who came from France who died suddenly in an accident where she was staying in Lisbon. So our Holy Father himself being the Good Samaritan to this family who suddenly lost their loved one, a 62-year-old catechist who came to Lisbon for World Youth Day and instead died accidentally. We now hear the farewell, customary, of Scholas Occurrentes.
Senhora, leva tudo o que é meu. São alegrias e são tristezas. São os meus dias, toda a beleza que sempre encontro em meu viver. Senhora, venho
The Holy Father is now leaving the building where he's been meeting with the young people from Scholas Occurrentes. He's now with the president or the director of this particular facility. His name is Jose Maria del Corral, and together with Pope Francis, they're giving the finishing touches to the planting of this olive tree. It's a symbol of peace.
Muito obrigada, Cuca, embaixadora da Scholas em Portugal, por nos acompanhar com o teu talento desta origem deste espaço. E se falamos de origem, falamos de dois grandes símbolos de escolas, a Oliveira e a Rola de Cá, sinónimo de gratidão e beleza.
The song that we heard is one characteristic of greeting in Portugal. And people from the area were in a neighborhood, and other people have been watching from the windows in the areas. Some children have just approached the Holy Father, and the Pope Francis is autographing. It looks like a ball, but it has something wrapped around it. So some child here in Portugal now has an autographed ball. A handball. I think it's a handball, which is very popular in Portugal. And our Holy Father now taking the microphone, who is blessing the olive tree that he's helped plant, give the finishing touches to the planting of this olive tree. And now with a watering can, he's also giving it a bit of water. There's a hole dug in the ground, and the olive trees are still in the original pots from the nursery, and so those will be transferred now. There's a few different olive plants now that we see it from a bit from a distance. So it looks like they'll have a few olive trees that will be planted there. And we can get the feel of the surrounding town. And we hear now the singing of the Ave Maria. Nosso Senhor convosco está, e a nós nos dá todo o seu amor. Rogai por nós, os pecadores, das nossas dores, ouvi. At this point, our Holy Father is being aided back into the car. He will be traveling by car back to the Apostolic Nunciature, where he will dine in private. It's just about 11:15 right now in Portugal. Father with a beautiful smile on his face as he waves goodbye as the car begins to take him back on his journey to the Apostolic Nunciature. Those who have met with him now taking their leave of him as well. Again, here we see it. He's been meeting in the neighborhood of Cascais. As we said, a port town, a tourist destination that also became the home to the last exiled king of Italy when the Republic of Italy was formed. And as we see these last images here from Cascais, we now bring this live broadcast to an end. This is the second event of the Pope's second day on his 42nd apostolic journey here to Portugal, where he has met with students who participate in the Scholas Occurrentes program, of which he himself founded.
Beautiful images there coming from the town of Cascais, beautiful medieval town, busy marina, famous for its sandy beaches. As our commentating team were saying, they're a very popular tourist destination and the location for the Pope's latest visit here on his papal journey to World Youth Day 2023, which we are bringing to you live here on EWTN. If you've just joined us, I'm Colin Flynn with Father Mark Mary Christina and Dr. Matthew Bunston. We are coming to you from our broadcasting centre here at Eduardo Park in Lisbon, around 40 minutes from the images we've just been watching live from that small coastal town. And it was lovely to see the Pope meeting again the young people as part of that movement which he helped to create back in Buenos Aires in his home country of Argentina, and giving them the icon, the gift of the story of the Good Samaritan, pointing to it, and this was all off the script, of course.
Yes, it was.
And saying, who are you in this image? Are you the person who passes? Are you the person who gets down and helps? And I love the moment when he said, are you the person who gets his hands dirty? Sometimes we have to get our hands dirty so as not to get our hearts dirty, which was a lovely way to put it.
Yeah, and that question that he asks, that we are all asked, who is my neighbor? Yeah, and for this community, the questions that he was receiving is a very relaxed atmosphere. I like the way that they ask him questions. They have a brief comment, and then the Pope responds. The question of chaos, I think, came up, and crisis, and the Holy Father trying to give one of those off-the-cuff answers that he frequently does, talking about how God always brings order out of chaos. And then also the image, I think, of this visit especially is him holding a paintbrush that the people are going to remember for a long time.
We were trying to figure this out. They were saying a virtual paintbrush. Now, I've never heard of a virtual paintbrush. Maybe they meant airbrush or something, because then, or a translator who did a wonderful job, by the way, she was saying, no, it actually is spraying something onto the canvas. So it was lovely, that informality, to see the Pope being handed the paintbrush and to contribute to that art that was already on the canvas. That's or on right. The wall there. I
always feel like you hear the pastor coming out in him, like preaching a lot as a priest and everything, and that you give these messages in a way that you could tell he's very familiar with. And of course, that icon and that story is so close to him about showing mercy, being compassionate. Who is your neighbor? Well, it's the guy you come across, everyone. It's broadened to everyone. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please.
Well, I like the image, too, of the distilled water, that nobody wants to drink distilled water. I think it's even bad for you. It leaches stuff out of you. But, you never think of that, but water does have some kind of taste, right? In these chaotic situations we have in life, that God can, as he put, create a cosmos out of the chaos, like as in Genesis, separating dark from light, or in the void, he brings life, he brings land and firmament and stuff like that. So God can take these sufferings, difficulties in life and make a beautiful creation, that we are to confront them together, to learn and grow together, to walk together. And there's so much true, because we don't believe alone, right? Mm-hmm. We believe as a community. We believe in the body of Christ. We profess that faith together. It's a living faith that we have received from others. It's been handed on to us. And I need other people's witness of faith, and they need my witness.
We had the testimonies this morning from the university students, Mahur in particular from Iran, and you were documenting her difficulties in life, the crises that she has faced. And I was thinking about her when Pope Francis was answering the young man about crisis and chaos, because as Francis says, without crisis in life, it has no flavor. Life has no flavor, he said. And this idea that we can somehow avoid crisis, that we can avoid chaos in our lives, it simply isn't true. It's going to happen. But how we respond to that, how we react to that, I think was one of the points that Francis was making.
And actually, Matthew, to your point, if some of our viewers missed that story this morning of that beautiful young lady who was speaking about her journey from Iran, then to Ukraine, and here to Portugal, our colleagues at CNA have already produced a short story on that, so you can go online and look for that, CNA, and some stories of the
Así
students.
Prensa is also has a beautiful piece. It's in Espanol, in Spanish. Yeah,
wonderful.
Our Spanish partner.
And just to give you at home an idea of this meeting we've just watched live along with you, how relaxed this is. You know, this morning and in other cases, when we see the Holy Father meeting young people, like this morning at the Catholic University of Portugal, we are given in advance a list of who will be speaking, their full names, their ages, and we're given more or less a rough idea of what they will be saying to the Holy Father, and the Holy Father maybe a general idea of how he will respond. So we have all that information ahead of time, so we know who is there and who will be speaking for what length of time. But for this meeting, we had nothing. It's the Pope is going to meet young people. That is it. When we were watching this with you, we were watching it unfold, which is the beauty of it as well.
Right.
The painting, the planting of the olive tree, the young people standing up, expressing, all of that is off the script, which is wonderful for the whole, to be able to have that relaxed environment.
Yeah,
with
you feel like you really get to know him better when he acts, spontaneously speaking kind of from the heart, and that immediacy of the interaction. Yeah, I always love to see that in the Holy Pope, in the popes.
Yeah, we're seeing a pastor at heart. He is a very pastoral pope, an intensely pastoral pope. Translation sometimes can get a little confused in terms of what he's actually saying or means to say. But this is also the great challenge that any pastor has of communicating the truths of the faith in a way that anyone can understand, especially young people. And I know that's one of the great challenges for any theologian, to be able to reduce the mystery of the incarnation in a way that a child can understand.
And as well, to be fair to our translating team across the few days, as people are tuning in and will be watching all the events, when you hear the various translators, the difficulty for them as well, translating live.
Exactly.
And it could be a complicated message that Pope Francis is trying to get across, and they're listening to it and trying to translate it in their mind, and they have other voices from directors and producers too. So it's a difficult thing to try and get it across, but that's with the beauty of television. We can see the images, and a picture paints a thousand words, an image does. So seeing the young people and just their faces and their joy is wonderful.
Yeah, and we kind of got interrupted, but I was talking about a couple of young people I just met, and it was great, to talk to them, to hear them, what their experience has been. And they used the word like a vibrant experience, to see like a living faith in the people they've encountered here, and believing together, different from my experience back home in Switzerland. She was the German-speaking part of Switzerland, and one of them had crutches. She had some disability, and I was asking her, how did you get along? Coming to the first opening mass, and she said, people were very good to me. They helped me.
And it was interesting when the Pope was talking earlier to the students at the Catholic University of Portugal. One thing he mentioned that you referenced afterwards when we were talking about it was the simple gestures of charity. And when we had breakfast this morning in a coffee shop just close to here, remember the comment you made when we left? Simply you turning around to the staff and...
Yeah, her face just brightened up, and you were thanking her for her service. The person serving us,
and you went and waved goodbye to them, but they just seen you...
and it was just wonderful to see. She was a young woman, just see her face brighten up, seeing the pilgrims and stuff. I felt very welcome just by people here. We were talking to a local reporter here. He's for Catholic media, and he's lifelong Portuguese, lived in Portugal, and he was saying, because the World Youth Day was delayed a year during the pandemic, they had this super long, kind of drawn out preparation. People were getting kind of tired, World Youth Day, World Youth Day. But he said after it began, people got excited, the locals got excited, and they said they had like people coming to volunteer. You know, this guy's a reporter. He's not like...
The population of Lisbon, I think, is about 500,000, 500,000. So we're looking at basically the doubling of the population.
Yeah, and when we came here a few months ago with the crew and we went around talking to people, some of the Portuguese that we met were like, oh, like you said, we've only 500,000 people here. Now we're going to get 1 million people. The traffic will be bad. The trams will be full. It's going to be a big inconvenience. And then there was concerns about the cost of hosting this. And then there was other concerns too about where will they stay. And yesterday I interviewed for News in Depth. It's coming up this Friday on the show. A veteran journalist for RTP, which is the public service broadcaster here. Her name is Martha. And I said, you know, there was a lot of complaints about this. And she said, Colm, complaining in Portugal is like a national sport. She said, we love to complain about everything. But when the time comes, she said, we love it. And now that, as you say, it's kicked off, people are saying, this is wonderful. The mayor of Lisbon told me that they estimate up to 300 million people around the world will see or hear of this event on their local news, online. And a lot of these people maybe will not have considered Portugal or Lisbon as a destination for a holiday before. And he said just getting Lisbon on the map like that is wonderful. And then seeing the young people, taxi drivers I've been taking through and from the studio. Yes, the traffic is bad. There are blocks in places. But they're saying this is wonderful. They love it.
Well, I was going to say that I've been here for about a week, almost a week. I have yet to have one person in Lisbon who's from Lisbon complain to me.
Me too.
That they're unhappy or wish this wasn't happening.
Well, we have around a minute left on air before we leave you from Lisbon, and I just want to point out, if you hear the rock music starting behind us, this is not the EWTN band playing. These are the organizers who are preparing and rehearsing for the welcoming ceremony, which is going to take place right here in Eduardo Park in Lisbon in a few hours' time this afternoon. If you want to check what time it's on in your local area, you can go to EWTN.com/WYD. That's EWTN.com WYD, and you can get all the information. And it's going to be an amazing welcoming ceremony. The Pope will be here as well. They'll have the bands, they'll have dancers, they'll have a procession of flags. Something to look forward to, Father Mark.
Oh, definitely. All the flags and the excitement. The young people, when they see the Pope, it's going to be a lot of excitement and fun.
Can I end by just asking you the significance of when we watched the Pope and he was leaving Cascais and the young people, he went outside to plant the olive tree. A reminder, the significance and importance and symbolism behind that.
I would think peace, right? Usually the olive tree is peace, and you know, the Holy Father has worked hard for peace and reconciliation, interreligious dialogue. So I think it's a very much a strength and priority for him.
In an era of crisis and war, we're all thinking of Ukraine, and I think the Holy Father is going to have a lot more to say about that, not just today, but in the days to come. The symbolism of the olive branch, the olive tree is there, planting for peace in the future. Olive trees also can last for a very long time. I think of the olive trees in the Garden of Gethsemane, that this has meaning and lasting presence. And I think that's what the Holy Father is trying to do here, to have that lasting presence and peace for the world.
Well, it's beautiful symbolism. It was a beautiful moment, and just listening to the music here and seeing the young people gather, this is going to be a great welcoming ceremony later on today, and we'll be covering it here live in EWTN. We have a special preview show where not only will we be building up to the event, but we'll be showing you more of the young pilgrims who have come from all over the world, including some of the volunteers, and a very special tour of this ancient city of Lisbon. And to wrap up from what we were covering, I love the beautiful moment, of course, when the Pope said, I will pray for you, young people, but he said, but you have to promise to pray for me too. And that's how we ended it. And we will end it by saying thank you for watching. Go to EWTN.com/WYD for more details of all the content that will be live on EWTN across the week. But for just now, we will join you again in a few hours here live from Lisbon. Until then, take care, thank you for watching, and God bless.
In the central part of Portugal, we're going to visit two unique cities that have incredible history for our faith and for the history of the church. Welcome to Tomar and Santarém. Tomar is a beautiful and majestic city with a river as well as parks, a very medieval city center, but most important is a convent, a chapel, as well as a park area that was dedicated by the Knights of Templar. While many stories surround the Knights of Templar, we know that the majority of them were financial, institutional experts which helped promote the Catholic faith around the world. Some of them were also dedicated to the protection of the Catholic faith from the Moors in the 12th century. The convent